times of confusion and doubt and conflict and desperation, we know the next right thing to go do. We just need to go do it. It may be a small thing, it may be a big thing, it may be a confession, it may be an apology, maybe just sit and listen to somebody. And so that school in Uganda was very clear that it was the next right thing that I was supposed to go do, and I did.
Like millions of people around the world, we need to work. Some do it for the money, others do it for the recognition. And if you're lucky, you do it because you love it. But finding purpose and passion in your work can be easier said than done, and the path to success can be unpredictable at best. But if you're looking for some inspiration, then I've got one question for you. Are you consuming your career, or is it consuming you? Welcome to Consuming Careers. How do you find the courage and strength to redefine your career when the next right step can lead you down a radical path into very unfamiliar territory? Hi, I'm Bruce Smith, and in this episode of Consuming Careers, we're meeting with Kurt Kandler, who, at a crossroads in his career, took what he believed was the next right step to follow an unexpected calling that led him to Uganda, Kenya, and beyond. So let's jump right into my interview with Kurt.
Are we recording now?
We are recording now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the Consuming Careers podcast with, I am not Bruce Smith, but we've been talking for a good 20 minutes at this point, and Bruce just looked at me and said, you know, Kurt, I didn't press the record button.
Didn't press the record button. So welcome back to Consuming Careers, and this time we're recording.
That's good to be here. Yeah.
So I want to welcome my much wiser friend,
oh my gosh,
Kurt Kandler.
It's good to be here again.
Kurt, yeah.
How do you begin again right now?
How do you begin again? Well, we're beginning again.
We are.
So, Kurt, tell us. Here we are.
Where are we?
We are on a lake in North Georgia. Where are we?
Thanks for having me, Bruce. It's good to be here.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for being
So
real.
we're on Lake Nottley. This is a lake in North Georgia, kind of just south of the Tennessee, North Carolina kind of borders. And that's kind of our happy place. We've got a place, Eric and I have a place up here in the lake, and we're sitting on my pontoon boat. And, if it was the summer, we'd have some boiled peanuts and some Miller High Life, but we don't have that right now.
It's beautiful out here,
too.
The
sun's going down. It's beautiful.
Well, I think we can actually see it this time, because when we recorded this half an hour ago, or didn't record it a half an hour ago, we couldn't see it, but now we've got a nice sunset.
The sun was up then. Now it's not.
Yeah, we have your dog that's protecting the pontoon boat from...
Yeah.
Anybody.
This is River. She's my girl, and she's a water dog, loves the water.
Yeah.
She might jump in any minute.
So it's a beautiful fall evening. I don't know what, 5:30, something like that. Sun's going down, and so excited to have you on the show, and hopefully this time we'll be able to.
It'll be better this time.
It'll be better this time.
It'll be better.
So where we started and where we left off, we'll just get right into that. So. I asked you the question about consuming careers and shared with you my idea for a podcast, on a month or two ago when we finally got this on the books. And that seemed to strike a chord with you. Talk to me a little bit about what about that drew you in?
Yeah, I mean, you came to me and you said, "Hey, Kurt, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, and I want you to be on it." And I said, "Well, what's it about?" And you said it's called Consuming Careers. And I listened to the first three. As of today, I guess 3 have been published. I listened to those, and you asked the question, are you currently consuming your career, or is your career consuming you? And I think that's a fascinating idea. An interesting idea of, I can only speak for me, but I mean, I kind of observe, right? People cycle through, kind of sine wave through being consumers or being consumed in their careers. Yeah. And I certainly am no different for that. And I just think that's interesting. And I also think it's interesting that there's some positives and negatives on both sides of that question.
That's right.
And so I'm glad I'm here. I'm really honored that you would ask me to do it. And,
Well, let's jump right into that question. So when people hear that, and that was intentional with a play on words, consuming career. So when hey, so-and-so is really consumed with their career, that's supposed to be a negative. Like that's all they do, and that's the most important thing in their life, and everything else kind of comes second. But you said that can be a sine wave, and sometimes there are pockets of time where you really need to kind of give more than you might normally on a regular basis, and sometimes you back off. So in your career, can you just give a kind of a snippet of what you're doing now, and then we can get a little bit more into how you view the way you've consumed or been consumed by your career.
Yeah. So today I'm the executive director of an organization called the 410 Bridge. The 410 Bridge is a ministry, a nonprofit. We work in extreme poverty environments. We currently work in 4 countries, looking at 2 other countries today. But basically, we walk alongside people who are living in and struggling with extreme poverty. And we help them self-develop or move to a place where they can self-develop and no longer need us. And so we walk alongside this community, really behind them, doing what we call community development work. And that is a holistic community development where, we may be walking with this community for 10 plus years. And moving them from a place where they are really struggling with basic needs, really all areas of need, water, education, health, economic development, whatever it might be. And we help them tackle those problems, but then most importantly, move to a place where they're ready to self-develop and not need help from outsiders.
Great.
And that's the mission of our organization.
Simple enough. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's piece of cake. Yeah.
Well, tell me the difference. And listen, you're the one that taught me, and I didn't realize this, the difference between relief and development, because I think that's an important differentiator.
Yeah, I mean, it's lots of books about it out there. Yeah. And relief is really should be associated with some sort of catastrophic event, meaning an earthquake, a hurricane, a flood, whatever it might be, a fire. When people are faced with a catastrophic event and take several steps backward, they don't need development. What they need is food, water, shelter. They need immediate relief. Yeah. And so relief should be immediate, but it also should be very short term. And I think that's what I've learned while I've been in this space, that a lot of organizations make the mistake of doing relief for way too long. And then that's where dependency is created, entitlement's created. Development is the other side of that. And development, I believe we rise and fall in our definitions. And so how are we going to define development? Well, we define development as that which people do for themselves. So when you do development with people, you're never doing for them, you're doing with them. If they don't participate and don't own those solutions, they're never going to be able to self-develop, because they're always going to see that the relief or the interventions that they're experiencing are coming from outsiders. And you really want them to own all the solutions that are happening in their community so that they can continue them long after you leave, because we're going to leave. It's a matter of time, really. It's not a function of if we're going to leave. It's going to function of when we're going to leave. And when we do, we want to make sure that this community is ready and positioned so that it can continue to develop without us.
Yeah. All right. So you haven't always been in this space, right? So that's not what you studied in school. That wasn't your passion coming, growing up. I can't wait to run a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. You had some other things in mind. So give us a quick backdrop on kind of, school, jobs.
Yeah.
Kind of how'd you get to 410 Bridge?
So I'm a finance kind of accounting major. Sat for the CPA exam, quickly realized this is not for me. And so for my career has always been...
It wasn't for me either, by the way.
Yeah. So my career has always been very entrepreneurial, and I say that in that I've always wanted to start and do my own thing, and I think that's just a nice way for me of saying that I realized very early on that I wasn't going to make a very good employee. I wanted to make the decisions. I wanted to be held responsible for those decisions, and I've always loved having an idea and starting something and turning that idea from nothing to something.
Yep.
So I did that several times over my career, and some more successful than others, and right after 9/11, my business at the time that I had started with a couple other guys didn't survive 9/11. Yeah. And we had entered what I would call my family's kind of dark times. A lot of people have very difficult times. Ours were, but I understand that people have, a lot more difficult times than we did. But nonetheless, found myself out of work, in debt, out the yin-yang. Oh my goodness, lots of debt. And I was presented with an opportunity at that time. I had to go get a job. Oh my gosh, that was not good. And but I did, and I was presented with an opportunity to build a school in Uganda, just really through our children's school. Presented with this organization that somebody had gone over to visit in their school. They came back, showed a bunch of pictures, and there was a school building that was just decrepit and built out of mud and sticks and cow dung and dirt floors, and kids sat on rocks. And I'm like, that seems really silly to me.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was supposed to go and build them a school building, which is really super weird because, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No. And but I did.
I mean, you're in debt.
I'm in debt, not making any money, going further in debt.
And you took the whole family.
Took the whole family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we raised some money. And so there was a whole process to that. And but basically, when I was over there in that community for 3 days, I realized what I thought I was doing to make really an impact for a generation or two was really of no moment. I mean, it just didn't matter. It's my first exposure to extreme poverty in the middle of Uganda, small community, middle of nowhere. And we finished that school building, and we did a little water project, and we got some textbooks, and we did a lot of things that were just frankly wrong the way we did them. Now I know. But I came back, and I realized that there had to be a better way to engage people struggling with extreme poverty, and became a bit of a student on that. Read a few books and studied it, and again, I'm sure you'll ask me about this in a minute, but raised a little bit of money, left the private sector, left my job, and started the 410 Bridge with enough money for about a year.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing ride of, again, ebbs and flows of being consumed and consuming, but it's been amazing.
Well, tell me about that decision process. So you had options, right? You could go get another job. You could start another company. Or you could do this nonprofit, which you had no experience of doing, and it's another part of the world. So, what was that decision tree that you went through on that?
So, what you need to know is that this is a walk of obedience for me. Meaning, I've always had a Christian worldview. As long as I can remember, I grew up in a Lutheran in a small little Lutheran school in Wisconsin. I'm a cheesehead.
Yeah.
And so I've always known about God, and I always thought that He had a part in my life. And again, ebbs and flows over your life that you come in and out of faith. At least I did. And so, but when my business failed, I would have said that I was a Christian. I was a believer. But what I realized through a friend was that there is a big difference between declaring Jesus Lord and allowing Him to lord over your life. And I was declaring Him Lord, and He was in this. God was on this shelf, and I'd take Him off or out of the box when I needed Him, and put Him back when I didn't. But so I was a believer, and I don't mean to trivialize it, but there was a big chasm between that and allowing Him to lord over my life. And so when I'm in the middle of these dark times, and I really, literally, Bruce, and we were there, I had no idea what to do. Really, literally no idea. I mean, in your deepest, darkest, quietest moments where it's just you and God, there is nobody else. I think convince anybody of anything, really, give me enough time. But, when it's just you and God, there's no convincing Him.
Right.
And I was at a place where I knew that my way was not working. I was in a bit of a anxiety, panic attack. I had no idea what to do to right this ship. And I got out of my bed, 2 a.m. in the morning, got out of my bed and got on my knees, and I said, listen, my way clearly is not working. And that's really hard for a guy like me to say. I mean, I don't know about you, but, I felt like there was never a problem that without enough work or enough focus or I just couldn't muscle through and I couldn't solve. But I wasn't fooling anybody. There was no way that this was going to get fixed by my power. And so anyway, I got out of bed and I dropped to my knees and I said, listen, you promised the peace that just transcends all understanding. And so I need some of that peace right now. And because I literally have nothing to do. I have no idea how to do anything. Nothing's working. Just give me the next right thing to go do, and I'll go do that.
Wow.
Make it clear. And, give me the next right thing, because please tell me what to go do. And I'll do that, and I'll trust you with the results. And so that was my prayer. And, I think people that are Christians listen to that kind of testimony, and they somewhat understand it. Maybe they've dealt with it. Maybe they can relate to it. And I think people outside the Christian faith say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. And all I'm here to do is say that look, he gave me the next right things to go do, and they weren't big things. Hey, go and go to Africa and build a school. I mean, it happened over little small steps over time, and but he made it clear. And there's in times of confusion and doubt and conflict and desperation, we know the next right thing to go do. We just need to go do it. It may be a small thing, it may be a big thing, it may be a confession, it may be an apology, maybe just sit and listen to somebody. It may need to be bold. I don't know what it is, but you know what to go do. But the key is to go and do it. And I've done that now for the last 20 some odd years, and it has served me really well. And so that school in Uganda was very clear that it was the next right thing that I was supposed to go do, and I did it. And I've just continued that path along for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, and I'm sure that wasn't as easy, and well, you didn't make it sound very easy, but as elegant as maybe you described, because you still didn't have a job.
Mm-mm. Life was a dumpster fire. You were there. Yeah.
I was, and I didn't, but I didn't experience it like, I wasn't there day to day, right? So the day-to-day struggles of meeting the needs of the family, 3 kids, I want to say.
Josh should.
Yeah.
Not yet.
And private school, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, until they weren't.
Until they weren't.
Yeah.
So listen, I think there are probably more people that hear that story and resonate with that late night stress, panic attack around what do I do now, where my skills aren't being bought in the marketplace, or I'm just nothing's working. And so I think you end up with a choice, right? It's either I can listen and be obedient or submit, or I can muscle through with whatever it is. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna take it all internally. So you came back from Uganda. Was there clarity after that experience, or did you come back and say, okay, now it's time to get a job? Like, let's quit fooling around.
So let me go back to something you said a second ago, and that is that the good news for me was that I had been trying to muscle through. I'd been white knuckling it. I've been working hard every day in my basement, calling people, working hard. But it was a wilderness walk, right? It's like there's no fruit at all for a long time. And so the good news for me is that I recognized that my muscling through was not going to do it, because I had been muscling through it and nothing was happening. And so that's actually kind of a bit of a relief, right? But no, I came back from Uganda, and I was perplexed. I was frustrated that we had spent a lot of money and gone over there. A lot of people had given us money to go and do the school and the water project and all that. And I had told them that we were going to make a change we're going to really help people. But, was it helpful? It was. Did it really help people? It did not. And that's why I named my book, If You Really Want to Help, because there were some fundamental things that we should have thought about, that we didn't think about, that made what we did really of no moment. So when I came back, again, a little bit of a student on it, right? I knew nothing about it, but I read some books, and all the books were very academic.
I want to stop you there. So was there something in Uganda that said, a specific event, like this is not working?
Yeah. Well, I'm slinging cement and throwing bricks on a building. I'm pretty handy. I build things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that when I'm done here, kids are still going to have a really crappy education at this school, even though there's a building. This water project that we're doing is a shallow well water project that is going to be helpful, but it's not going to solve the poverty problem. It's going to solve a piece of the problem that keeps people in extreme poverty. But the bigger issue for me is that these people need to think differently.
Yeah.
Why do they think that why do they believe that what they think is true? That The men can sit around and do nothing, which they were. Women can do everything in the community. Kids can go to school without a decent education. It's going to continue to cycle through. And I just felt like, oh my, as I'm building this building, this is a waste. This is a waste of time and resources. But at least I didn't just kick it to the curb and say, oh, there's nothing I'm going to do, or nothing I can do. I'm not going to try. I really felt like the next right thing for me to do was to figure out a better model to engage the poor. And the way that we say it today is that, our organization exists because we got to redefine this war on poverty. We have to redefine what it means to actually win it. We have to redefine what it means for the people living in extreme poverty. And I think more importantly, we have to redefine how we all fight that battle together. Yeah. And that's the way that we say it. And I didn't know that then, but that's where I am today.
And you said, so this is an interesting comment you made about they need to think differently. Now, my immediate reaction is that an American, construct about they need to think more like us, or just open that up a little bit more, because that's my first reaction.
It's a great question because, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify it, because 20 years ago when I went, whenever that was, I would have said they need to change their perspectives. Yeah. But what I very quickly realized when we started 410, within the first year, is that we couldn't be successful helping people living in extreme poverty without support from the West. But we also couldn't be successful doing what we were going to do with the people struggling in extreme poverty until we changed the paradigm of how the West engaged the poor. Okay. So our perspectives on this side of the bridge needed to change as well. We needed to quit thinking that we had the money and the idea, and therefore it needs to be our way. That was what I thought when I went to Uganda, right? I got the money, and I'm going to go build a school building, and it's all me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very American, it's a very
Western thing.
Yeah, that's a capitalistic. Sure, it works most of the time.
No, I don't think.
In business.
In business it does, but I don't think in helping the poor, it does not help.
Right.
Because we do more to disempower them. Bob Lupton wrote a book called Toxic Charity. A lot of people in my space have read it, and it basically says, when you do something for someone who has the capacity to do it for themselves, you disempower them. Now, we're doing that in our country every day.
Sure.
We can get into that whole thing if you want.
Absolutely.
But we did not want to disempower people. We wanted to empower people. And in order to empower people, you can't empower people against their will. They have to embrace that empowerment. So if they see themselves as victims, look at all the things that happened to me. Look at all the things that are happening to me from outsiders, and you should have compassion on me because of all these things that are happening to me.
Yeah.
They're not going to embrace that empowerment. But on this side of the bridge, if you see them as victims, if you see them as people who can't self-develop, they can't do for themselves, you can never empower them, because you see them, your perspective is you see them as victims. You see them as incapable. And I'm telling you that they are entirely capable. They're amazingly capable. What they need to do is unlock how they think, from whatever it is today, from a victim mentality, from animism, from whatever it might be, to what I would say a Christian biblical worldview helps them solve their poverty problem more without us than they will with us. And that's the heart of our organization.
Okay, so why you? 20 years ago, why you? Why did you feel like it was your role to step into this? I guess I'm foreshadowing to what it is today. Like, you didn't see yourself as a CEO or executive director of a large of the organization. Like, maybe you did. I don't know. I'm just asking. Like,
well, I mean,
why did you feel like you wanted to step in that gap?
I don't think that I wanted to. I don't think that I even had any idea that I ever would. There's no way.
Wow.
There's no way. But look, when I'll just speak about me. When I made the decision to allow God to lord over my life.
Yeah.
And it's just me and him. And you make that promise and you say, just give me the next right thing to do and I'll go do that. Well, if I don't live up to that commitment, nobody would know, but he would know. And that's just not who I am. And so this is a walk of obedience. This isn't something that I've ever dreamt of doing. It's just an amazing honor and privilege to do it. But I never dreamt I would ever be helping the poor. I know nothing about helping the poor in my career. I dreamt about being the CEO of a large organization that I had started, and I was going to make lots of money. And And that was my plan. But, when you make that commitment, whatever the next right thing to do is, you're going to have to honor that commitment. And I did. And it's a walk of obedience. And, he has rewarded that walk for me personally, in my family, in my career, and helping hundreds of thousands of people. It's been amazing. But
I'll be honest. That response inside my core is very uncomfortable. So, this next right thing, and I want to draw the parallel to work and jobs, and just think about it, anybody in the working world. To think about just doing the next right thing, right, is very uncomfortable, right? I want a plan. I need a 5 to 10 year plan. I need a 30-day plan at 60, 90. Mm-hmm. So, I hate that.
Yeah,
right?
Well, let me help you with that.
Yeah,
Because
please.
I'm not saying by doing the next right thing you don't plan. I'm not saying you don't look off in the future and you don't plan in 5, 10 years, whatever. But if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I did.
Yeah.
He's cracking up. But that doesn't mean don't plan. It doesn't mean don't be a good steward of your time and your resources. It does. Everybody should be generous, and we should be good stewards of that, and we should plan. But is it our plan or is it his plan?
Yeah.
And again, I can see non-Christians listening to that and going, this is just a bunch of hooey, right? But it really isn't, unfortunately for you. It really isn't a bunch of hooey. It's actually an amazingly freeing thing where when for me, when I know that I am lockstep with what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm much bolder. I'm willing to take a few more risks.
Yeah.
And that's 410 Bridge was a huge risk. I mean, huge risk. I mean, imagine the conversation with Erica at home. I mean,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Sure.
So.
Okay. So back to kind of the consuming career question.
Mm-hmm.
As you started to develop 410 Bridge, and everything was going swimmingly, communities were welcoming you in with open arms. Talk to me about some of those challenges and what it took to get established in maybe in a community in Kenya. The time, the energy, the consuming part of that.
Yeah. The words would be, it's really easy to say it was all consuming. I don't know that it was all consuming, but it was significantly consuming. We had principles. And again, compassion drove me in this direction, but I see compassion not as emotion. I see compassion as no fool in helping people so that they don't need to look to me for help in the future. And so, but what I also realized is that the space we were in was very emotional. So, when you see a child struggling, I mean, really struggling, your heart breaks and you want to go do something. And so I realized that we needed to have some guiding principles, some guardrails that we created so that in times of disagreement or times of high emotion, we knew the guiding principles for our organization, and we were going to stay true to those guiding principles because that was the right thing to go do. And so we created those principles, and that's been really helpful. And it's also been really helpful so that I didn't get sucked into doing anything. I think there's this myth that anything that we do for the poor must be a good thing.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you that it's not. There are lots of things that we should not do for the poor because it disempowers them. But those guiding principles created those guardrails, and it helped me manage working in a country on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
We started in Kenya when I had a wife and 3 kids, and the dumpster fire was still raging when I started 410. It's not like everything got solved. It didn't. We still had the debt, and we still had all sorts of problems. But those guiding principles helped me not get completely consumed.
Yeah, explain some of those. Like what can you remember what some of those are?
Guiding principles?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sure. So we have guiding principles for our organization. We have guiding principles for the communities. We have guiding principles for people that we send. All that. And so I'm trying to think of some important ones. So
and I remember going to Kenya with you. So when we went into a community, and you would see the poor around everywhere, and they all have needs. And I remember you asking the question, like, how do we decide who we help and when we help and how do we help them, because the need is unlimited.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't have the capacity, time, and resources to solve every need that we see. So how are we going to go?
That's
what
right.
Are we going to
How
go
do we decide?
So one guiding principle is we have to be invited. We have to be asked to come in. We don't just show up.
Okay.
Another guiding principle is that we believe in indigenous leadership and indigenous sustainability, meaning that they have to lead, we follow.
Yeah.
Are there leaders in this community that have a vision beyond their own personal needs? They have a vision for their community. And are they inviting us in to walk alongside them as they mobilize and unify their communities to go and do for themselves? Mm-hmm. We're really there to help improve the pace and depth of the work that they do. And we're there to help them to do that. Guiding principles, we don't see the poor as a set of problems to be solved. A water problem, an education problem, an economic problem. We see the poor as the solution to their poverty problem. And when you see them as the solution to their poverty problem, you are now going to no longer want to lead. You're going to want them to lead, and you're going to follow. You're not going to do for them. You're going to do with them, because they're the solution, not us. They need to see themselves as a solution to their poverty problem, and we need to see them as a solution to their poverty problem. Otherwise, we just create dependence and empowerment. Look at our country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way all over the world.
Kurt, that sounds very messy. Can't we just write a check and fix that?
Checks are welcome. But no, it's built on relationship. We can't. We need resources to go do what we do, but you have to have relationships in the community so that you've earned the right to be heard. Again, they're inviting you in, and relational development is critical. Otherwise, you just end up coming in and having a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
See a problem, solve a problem. That's what I did in Uganda. Had a problem of a classroom building, raised money, solved the classroom block problem, and I felt pretty good about myself. Yeah. But I realized that it didn't matter. It wasn't going to solve the problem.
And I want to shift a little bit back to you. So for years, my experience of you is traveling more than most, having Delta rewards that you multi-million-dollar.
They're overrated.
So okay, so how did you keep, speaking of guardrails, how did you keep guardrails around your life and to an extension, as long as that was healthy? I would assume as long as that part was healthy, your career / ministry would be healthy. Or what were the trade-offs?
Okay, so I would say, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and I don't know that I've really thought through it entirely well. So maybe I can verbally process it. But the most important thing in my life is my wife and my family. My kids were in their early teens when I started 410. Right now they were, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe something like that. And it did require me to be gone a lot, but I limited my trips to Kenya to 4 times a year. I'd be gone for a week, maybe 10 days at a time. But there was some domestic travel, and I was away from home a lot. So it was really critical that Erica be on board with this.
Yeah.
And she's got her own story with all of this, and but she was, and she knew. This is what she said. I think this is what she said. I think she has a different version of this story, but
this one's correct.
But this one's correct. So, honey, if you're listening, this is the way it really happened. So, I was presented with this idea to go and start an organization in Kenya, working in Kenya to address this poverty problem, and I felt like that was the next right thing for me to do. So it required a conversation with Erica. I said, honey, this is what I think I'm supposed to go do, which means I need to go quit my job. I need to go do this. And she says, well, there is no this. That's an idea.
Right. Wow.
This is a job, and this is still the dumpster fire that we're living in.
That's right.
Really because of a lot of decisions I made, right, in my business that, going into debt and all of that. And I said, well, what would you have me do? And she looked at me and she said, well, Kurt, if you're telling me that the creator of the universe is telling you that you need to go do this, well, then you need to go do it. But
wow.
you need to be the best at it that you can imagine. You need to do it with excellence.
Yeah.
I don't know if those were exact words, but you need to do it really well. And we had to be together on it, and we were. and it's been an amazing journey. She's really proud of the work that we've done, and she took some jobs that she didn't want, and we had to make ends meet. But we've got through the dumpster fire, and God's blessed it. And
that's great.
We've helped a bajillion people, and our marriage and our family is amazing and blessed. And we took them over there, and they got a chance to see, outside of their North American bubble.
Yeah.
As you did, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the ways to balance that consumption thing, is to have your wife on board with it.
Yeah. Okay. So were there times that maybe you kind of got outside of those guardrails? And the bigger question is, what maybe advice, or what did you learn from that, or how would you guide your 20 or 30-year-old self when this situation arrives? Here are the lights that are going to go off, or talk about that.
Well, I guess what you're asking me is like, when I sensed that my career was consuming me, what did I do?
Well, did you sense it, or did other people sense it for you, and enlighten you, Kurt?
Well, we attended a church for many, many, many years, and a pastor of the church said, pay attention to the tension. When there's tension, pay attention to that.
That's
because, and so I would, when there was tension at work or at home, or you gotta humble yourself and say, look, I can't just continue to do the same things over and over again and expecting it to be okay. You've got to adjust, and I feel like I did that. I didn't certainly do it perfectly. I certainly don't have it all figured out, but when you do something like what I did, which is radical, it was radical for me.
Absolutely, that's right. It'd be radical for anybody.
But you know that it's the right thing to do, and you're putting your faith and your trust, knowing that, again, as Erica said, the creator of the universe, which is a bizarre concept for a lot of people to get their arms around. But when you're doing that, and you're doing a walk of obedience, he has protected my family. He's protected my marriage. He's flourished both. I have an amazing family, and it's a blessing from him. And I think that part of it is because I've just tried to be as obedient as I can. I've gotten more wrong than I've gotten right, but I've just tried to be obedient, and that's worked. Now let me get back to the consumption thing. Can I get to
you
the
sure
consumption?
Can.
What's it like? What's it like really every day when your career is consuming you? There's two ways to look at that. I think one of the ways is that it's negative, like you said earlier, where you're getting wrung out. It's just chewing you up and spitting you out, and you feel drained, and you don't have the energy. You feel depressed. You feel all these things because you can't seem to be making a difference, and your career is requiring more of you than you have, and that's the career consuming you. But I also think there's a positive side of that, and where the career is taking all of your strengths, all of your giftings, and it's using those giftings in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right. On the other side of that, when you're consuming your career, your career feeds you. In many ways, it does.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
The problem is when it feeds you too much, or you start looking to your career to feed you too much, you're out of balance, man. You're out of whack. And when you're working all the time because you feel like you get some sort of respect, or you get some sort of fulfillment out of your career at the expense of something that's more important than your career, then you're out of whack. And there's no magic to that. There's a fine line to making sure that you don't get out of whack. So both of those can, I think, be positive and negative. And I'm certainly in my career, especially in the nonprofit world, when you're helping the poor, it's very complicated. It's messy. It's dirty. It's not attractive. It's nonprofit. You're not doing this for the money. There is no money. You're every amount that we get to do what we do is sacrificially given by somebody. Mm-hmm. So it requires people to be generous. It's really, really tough. It's the toughest thing I've ever done. It's way tougher than the business world, in my view. But, that's how I see that.
And how has your perspective on that changed over the years? So is it a natural, I would say, evolution in your life, in your career, to work harder, to work less hard, to, people say working smarter, to be more devoted, to be more committed? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, as you get wiser through the 410 bridge, after 20 years, you're working differently in that ministry than you did in year 5, right? Maybe that's smarter. So how would you advise kind of your younger executive director self 15 years ago? Here are some things you might face. Here's what you need to be prepared to face, and here are some ways to handle it.
Wow, man, I don't know. So if I were to focus on what would I tell my 15-year ago self? I would tell him that you don't have to do everything yourself. You've got to figure out a way to find really good people, really good leaders to help. That's really hard, especially in the nonprofit space, I think. But I do also think that I look back at that and I say, did it pretty well. I mean, we muscled through and got to this point got through a Great Recession. We've gone through COVID. I mean, my goodness, we've gone through amazing things, and we've navigated that because we really have tried to do the next right thing. But I am wiser today than I was then, and I feel like I've become more certain about how and why this organization was created than I did back in the early days. It's evolved. He's made it clear, and through our experiences, we've made it clear what works and what doesn't work. And again, we've gotten more wrong than right. But I'm more committed and more bold and more. I have a stronger sense of how to know, fool, and help people living in extreme poverty. And I just want to go do more of that. Why wouldn't I want to go do that in as many places as quickly as possible as we can? Because it works, and it's amazing, and we can actually leave. And people, after we leave, are well on their way to changing the quality of their life without us. So why wouldn't I want to go do that more often?
So I forget what year I went to Kenya with you, Carolee and I. Had to be 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Wow, really?
Maybe longer. And I don't think anybody had graduated at that time. So when we say graduating, a graduating community. Okay, so has anybody graduated? Tell me, let's hear some of those, one of those stories.
So the first one was a community in Kenya called Kwaba, Kenya, and that was our very first community that we started in 2006, and they graduated, I can't remember when, but I think it was 9 years later. Yeah. And here's how I would say it. We've graduated 13 communities in Kenya, a couple in Haiti, haven't graduated any in Guatemala yet, but graduation is basically like a student would graduate from school. Some graduate with honors, and then some graduate, well, like you and I. So graduation, all that means is, back in the day, it was long ago when our first communities were graduating. It was just time for us to move on. Yeah. The first community said, "Hey, thank you, but we don't really need you anymore. Would you go help our neighbors?" We thought that was great.
That is great.
But today, graduation is, have we achieved a set of outcomes that the leaders in the community have said that they want to achieve when we started? So, for example, when are we finished with this water problem? When are we finished with the education problem? When are we finished with these different issues that you want to go address? They give us a vision for their community. They want to get from point A to point B. How are they going to get there? What are the outcomes that we want to put in place? So we're not a process-based ministry. We're an outcomes-based ministry, meaning we don't care how many times we run a program or how many times we do something. Is the outcome that we're looking to address, right? Lifting household incomes, solving the water problem so that people have clean, safe water within a certain distance of their homes. Those outcomes are what we drive to. And once we start achieving those outcomes, then we can start talking to the community about graduating. Yeah. And, it's probably a 2-year window between the time we say, hey, we need to think about this, and we actually complete it. But when we graduate a community, there's a big celebration. We just graduated a 13th one a few months ago. And there's a big celebration about look at what the community has done on its own.
Yeah. So tell me about, so communities are made of people.
Yeah.
Give me a success story of a person that has been part of that success story.
My gosh, man, there are literally thousands of those. There's a couple in a place called Gamba, Kenya. Yeah. And Stephen and Sabina. I love Stephen and Sabina. Stephen was the town drunk. There were many town drunks. He was one of them. And he was a farmer. They all are subsistence farmers. But he was a farmer, and but he couldn't be successful farming. And for some reason, somehow along the way, we needed to find 30 farmers in this community to go to Zimbabwe, to go learn how to farm, do foundations for farming. It's basically farming God's way. It's a really unique, technical way of improving farmers' yields. Anyway, so Stephen was charged with finding these 30 farmers because he was a man of influence. And basically what that meant was he was in the town center every day getting drunk with his buddies on the local brew. And what Stephen would say was, Kurt, I was a bad husband. I was a bad farmer. I was a terrible father. And they asked me to go find these 30 farmers, and so I did. I just thought I'll help them find these 30 farmers. So I asked 30 of my buddies, and they said they would go to Zimbabwe for 30 days. And at the last minute, one of the guys left the community or didn't decide to go, and they needed to send 30, and so they picked Stephen, and he had zero interest in going to Zimbabwe, but he went. Long and short of it is he went, and he learned that there was something here for him, and that it was more than just his farming skills. He realized that he was a bad father and a bad husband and a bad farmer and a bad community member, and he had this life-changing event where he met Jesus, and it changed him. So when he called his wife and said, there's something here for us. Well, Sabina was a failed business person in the community, but she learned about our business startup training. And it's basically a training that puts entrepreneurs through how to run a successful, profitable business. And he came back from his farming training and implemented those techniques. She went to business training, implemented those techniques. And when you listen to and see Sabina and Stephen today, their marriage is amazing. They love each other. They told me when I wrote the book, I went back to Kenya I wanted to interview some people. And Stephen and Sabina were one of the couples. And I said, so tell me how your perspectives have changed today versus when we first met each other 10, 15 years ago. And they said, Kurt, we will never be poor again. You taught us that we had poverty of the mind. That we thought we were poor, that we thought we needed to look to outsiders to solve our problems. We will not be a burden to our children. Look at my farm. And he's got an amazing farm today, and he's selling crops, and she's got an amazing business today.
That's great.
And there are leaders in their community, and there are Stephen and Sabina's, literally Bruce, okay, I said thousands, but it's tens of thousands of people that have been impacted. Not because we helped them with water, or not because we helped them with training, or not because we helped them with education, but because we taught them how to think differently, that God has given them everything that they need to be successful right in front of them. They need to start with what they have. They need to be godly husbands and wives and siblings and parents and teachers and leaders in their community. And when you do that, that's the secret sauce to solving the poverty problem. I'm convinced of it. I've seen it, again, a lot. And it works. And so, again, why wouldn't we want to go do that more anywhere we can as quickly as we can?
Fantastic. What challenges are you facing now? And how are you tackling those? What are the biggest things in front of you right now?
Well, I'm getting of age, right? So, I mean, I've got to think about the future, and I think the future of the organization. I'm the founder and the leader, and so I need to raise up people that can take over this organization long after I leave. I think I've found the guy to succeed me, and he's an amazing man. And
right.
So that's a big challenge to get him up to speed. He's been on board for a year, and it's going to take years to get him to a place where he can know all the things that he needs to know, but he's hungry and eager to do that. So that's a big challenge. Haiti is a big challenge. Where Haiti's a failed state, and so we work in really rough places around the world. And then, just the normal kind of challenges of running a ministry, running a nonprofit. again, where, you don't have a product that you're making. People just need to support the organization because they feel like the 410 Bridge has created and developed a new and effective way of solving the poverty problem, and they want to get behind that. And so trying to get as many people as engaged into our ministry as we can is
Wow.
an everyday task.
Yeah. So what a blessing it is to, and I mean that in a very specific way, for you to be able to see the culmination of you doing the next right thing, and seeing lives changed. Right. Not everybody gets to do that. Sometimes people's calling or vision or mission or whatever that might be, they don't get to see the fruit. And you've been able to see the fruit. And there have been hundreds or thousands of people that have been able to experience that blessing from that single act of obedience. And I wanted to say that because you may not say that because you're so humble.
Well, I would counter that a bit with, I think we oftentimes are looking for the tens of thousands of people that we're impacting. I just happen to be in a position where that's kind of how our model works.
Yeah.
I challenge people all the time. I met a guy, a Chick-fil-A guy.
Yeah.
Had a meeting with him. He said, Kurt, whenever somebody comes within a 3-foot radius of me, I feel like they're there for a reason, and I want to spend special time with them.
I like that.
And I like that too. And not that every person that comes within 3 feet of him, he needs to, be talking to, but
he'd have a tough time in New York.
He does. But he makes special notice. He takes special notice of that.
Sure.
And I just feel like all of us, in many, many ways, can make impact on tens of thousands of people. It may not be all in one community, right? Like I've done it. It's who are the people that you're interacting with? It's your family, it's your spouse, it's your kids, it's your neighbors, it's whomever, the people you work with. Who are the people that when they come in contact with you are changed just a little bit?
Yeah.
And see something that may be attractive to them that they want a part of, and they ask you and try to learn a little bit more about why you are the way you are. That's my desire. That's my hope. And I just would say, you don't have to be helping tens of thousands of people living in poverty to be making a difference. You can be helping the guy across your street or next door to you.
That's great. Tell me about this book. You've got a book, and I want to have a little shout out about it, just to make, how can people find it and what's it called, and tell us about it.
Yeah, because you're looking at me going, I can't believe you wrote a book, Kandler.
I can't believe it at all.
Well, I did. I turned 60, Bruce, and
how long ago?
A few years ago. And I remember we were talking, and I said, hey, Bruce, I'm the oldest in our friend group that we go to the beach with, right? And I'm about to turn 60, and all of a sudden, I realized that, I was entering the fourth quarter, and there's no overtime, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember telling you guys, I said, listen, so tell me, I only have a certain number of good vacations left. Why should I be spending them with you?
I remember that clearly.
Yeah. So I had a real
We're on
sense,
the countdown.
I had a real sense of urgency to do things that I've said I was going to do, and I thought that I needed to do. And the book was one of them. And it's not just a book for the sake of writing a book. It's a book of, if you really want to help the poor, here's a way to do it. And it's a bit of a teaching. It's an origin story of 410 Bridge, and much of what we talked about.
Yeah.
But it's also, how we go approach our work and how we actually help people shift their worldview. And it's also a bit of a rebuke to organizations out there who are continue to give things away like shoes and clothes and disempowering people and really challenging them to rethink the strategy of their work because they're not really helping. I mean, they may find what they're doing is helpful, but if you really want to help, we've got the poor. We really have to help them realize that they can go do things for themselves on their own without help from outsiders and have them hungry to go do that. And when they get that hunger to go do that on their own, it's amazing to watch a community self-develop.
Tell me the name of the book again and where can they find it?
So it's If You Really Want to Help, and it's on Amazon's Kindle version. There's not an audio book yet, but I'm working on that. But you can get it on Amazon.
And then how can people connect with you?
So 410 Bridge, 410 Bridge. They can email me at Kurt, K-U-R-T, at 410bridge.org. I'm on Instagram. 410 Bridge's website is 410bridge.org. You can reach me there. And that's how to do it.
That's great. Well, Kurt, this has been a real treat for our second take.
Second take. Yeah, this one, we are recording.
We are recording this time. Yeah. Oh, that's embarrassing. So thanks again for joining Consuming Careers. It's a beautiful night. And what are we going to do in the next half hour?
We're about to eat some ribs that I've smoked on the green egg. But Bruce, let me tell you, thanks for having me.
Yeah, really.
You've been a dear friend of mine, and we know each other probably better than I think anybody else you might actually interview. But I appreciate you doing it, and if people can get out of this something that will help them to keep them from being consumed and maybe be more of a consumer of their careers and make a difference in the world, I think you're doing good work.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us on Consuming Careers. If you've enjoyed the show, please click the follow button in your podcast app so you won't miss any of our future episodes. And if you have a minute, write us a review. We truly appreciate hearing from our listeners. And as always, I'm Bruce Smith, and you've been listening to Consuming Careers.